won't save you. We're opening the doors to a world where darkness doesn't just blind, it consumes the soul. Here, in the darkest corners of the night, even your breath can become a harbinger of nightmares. Question everything you knew about safety and comfort. Are you prepared to hear eerie whispers from nowhere invade your mind and torment every thought? Leave your fears at the door, because what we show you will make them burst forth. Are you ready to journey into the dark corners where every sound and shadow harbors an unknown danger? Sit tight and brace yourself, for the night is just beginning, and its horror could become your eternal companion. It's time to step into a world with no way back, where darkness will be your only guide.
Mike is a 34-year-old man who leads a life that many would consider typical. He wakes up each morning to the soft hum of the alarm clock that sits on his bedside table. The sun streams through the window, casting warm rays across his small but tidy bedroom. Each morning is a ritual. He gets out of bed, stretches, and prepares for the day ahead. After a quick shower, he dresses in his usual work attire of a button-up shirt and khakis. Breakfast consists of a simple bowl of cereal and a cup of coffee brewed to perfection. After breakfast, Mike heads to his modest car parked in the driveway. The short commute to his office is filled with the familiar sights of his neighborhood. He passes the same houses, the same trees that line the street. There is comfort in this routine. At work, Mike is an accountant in a mid-sized firm where his days are filled with numbers, spreadsheets, and reports. His colleagues are friendly, and they often share light banter over coffee breaks. Mike enjoys the stability of his job and the predictability it offers. His workspace is organized and clutter-free. Photos of family and friends adorn his desk. As the hours pass, Mike loses himself in his work, focusing on the tasks at hand. After a long day, Mike returns home to the quiet of his apartment. The familiar creaks and groans of the building surround him, but tonight they seem amplified. The shadows in the corners of the room appear deeper, more pronounced. He tries to shake off the feeling as he prepares dinner, but the unease lingers. As he sits down to eat, the silence feels heavy. The ticking of the clock on the wall is almost deafening. He glances at the window, half expecting to see someone standing outside, but there is only darkness. The ordinary comforts of his home suddenly feel alien. Mike finishes his meal and cleans up, but the feeling of unease follows him into the living room. He plops down on the couch, hoping to unwind with his favorite show. The flickering light from the television casts erratic shadows across the room. For a moment, he wonders if he is imagining things. He shakes his head and tells himself that nothing is wrong. Yet, as he turns off the television and prepares for bed, the shadows seem to dance in the corners, taunting him in their quiet way. As he lies in bed, the stillness of the night surrounds him. The ordinary life he has built feels precarious, teetering on the edge of something unknown. It starts as a faint sound barely audible over the low hum of the night. Mike lies in his bed, the shadows from the streetlight outside flickering against the walls. Just as he is about to drift into sleep, he hears it a whisper. It is soft, almost soothing, but there is something unsettling about it. He sits up, heart racing, straining to make sense of the sound. He brushes it off, telling himself that it is nothing. As he settles back down, the whisper returns, slightly louder this time. It feels as though it is creeping into his thoughts, intertwining with his own. Mike squeezes his eyes shut, willing the voice to fade. It does not. Instead, it grows more distinct, words forming but remaining just out of reach. His mind races to rationalize the experience. Is it stress? Fatigue? He has been working long hours lately. Surely it is just his imagination playing tricks on him. The next day, the whispers return, this time while he is at work. As he sits at his desk, numbers blur on the screen, and the voices rise and fall like a distant echo. His colleagues chat around him, but their words fade as the whispers grow louder. Mike rubs his temples, trying to dispel the unease. He looks around, half expecting someone to be speaking to him, but everyone is engrossed in their tasks. He shakes his head, dismissing the thought as paranoia. Yet, the whispers persist. They linger in the corners of his mind, becoming a constant distraction. He finds himself zoning out during meetings, nodding absently while the voices chant softly. By evening, Mike is exhausted. He returns home, but the familiar sanctuary of his apartment feels different. As he prepares dinner, he hears the whispers again, clearer now, almost demanding. They urge him to act, to do something he cannot comprehend. He grips the countertop, knuckles whitening as panic rises within him. He tries to focus on the tasks at hand, chopping vegetables, boiling water, but the whispers drown out every rational thought. They grow louder, more insistent, and he can no longer ignore them. He feels a burgeoning fear settle deep in his chest. Mike tries to focus on the mundane tasks of life, but the voices invade every moment of silence. His relationships with friends and family begin to fray as he withdraws into himself. The laughter of colleagues feels foreign, their conversations reduced to a dull hum that only heightens his paranoia. He becomes a master of disguise, putting on a brave face during social gatherings while his mind races with fear. The voices urge him to isolate further, to avoid those who care about him.
They won't understand,
They whisper.
they will turn against you.
He begins to avoid phone calls, ignoring texts from concerned friends. Mike's world shrinks to the confines of his apartment, where the whispers reign supreme. He wanders through the empty rooms, feeling as though the very walls are closing in. The darkness seeps into every corner, and he feels hunted, not by an external force, but by his own fragmented psyche. He sits alone in the dim light, surrounded by the remnants of his former life photos that now feel like a cruel reminder of what he has lost. The laughter captured in those images feels like a distant echo, a life lived by someone else. The reflections in the mirror grow distorted, and he struggles to recognize the man staring back at him. The whispers transform into commands, and he finds himself teetering on the edge of a precipice, unsure of whether he will leap into the abyss or find a way back to the light. Driven by the urgency to understand, he turns to the internet, diving into a sea of information about mental illnesses and their symptoms. He pores over articles detailing conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and severe anxiety. Each story he reads resonates with his own experience, yet he feels a disconnection, as if his struggle is unique. The labels seem insufficient, too simplistic to encapsulate the terror that consumes him. As the days stretch on, Mike's research leads him down a rabbit hole of supernatural phenomena. He finds forums discussing hauntings, demonic possession, and voices from beyond. The more he reads, the more his fear morphs into paranoia. He stumbles upon tales of individuals who claim to hear entities urging them toward violence. The chilling accounts mirror his own experience, igniting a spark of both intrigue and dread. With every passing moment, his terror deepens. Mike becomes acutely aware of his surroundings, hypervigilant to every sound, every shadow. He fears that he might act on the sinister commands echoing in his head. The thought of harming anyone sends icy tendrils of panic coursing through him. He isolates himself further, afraid of what he might do in a moment of weakness. Friends and family reach out, but he pushes them away, convinced that they would never understand the darkness festering within him. Desperation leads him to seek solace in the stories of others who have faced similar demons. In his search, Mike encounters a web of red herrings. He hears about rituals to banish evil spirits, advice on grounding techniques, and even dubious recommendations for herbal remedies. Each piece of information offers a flicker of hope, yet none provide the clarity he so desperately seeks. The voices twist and turn, leading him to contradictory conclusions. He questions everything, including his own sanity. He finds himself in strange places, the physical world becoming a labyrinth of confusion and fear. One moment he is sitting on his couch, and the next he is standing in the middle of a dark alley, heart pounding and breath quickening, with no recollection of how he arrived there. One evening, he wakes up in a park, surrounded by darkness and the distant sounds of laughter. The chill of night wraps around him, and he struggles to remember how he got there. The voices swirl in his mind, urging him to leave, to run, to hide. He stumbles to his feet, disoriented and terrified, glancing around at the empty benches and the looming trees. The moonlight casts eerie shadows, and for a moment, he feels as if he is being watched. He begins to question his own actions, unsure if he is even in control anymore. He finds himself wandering aimlessly, unable to recall where he has been or what he has done. The once familiar streets of his neighborhood morph into a distorted maze, each corner hiding secrets he cannot decipher. He feels like a ghost, drifting through his own life, invisible to the world around him. In a moment of clarity, Mike catches a glimpse of his reflection in a store window. The man staring back at him is a stranger. His eyes are wide with fear, and the shadows under them speak of sleepless nights consumed by dread. He feels a wave of desperation wash over him, a primal urge to scream, to escape the prison of his own mind, but the whispers drown out his cries, wrapping around him like chains, binding him to their will. Mike stands in the middle of the living room, heart racing, his breath quickening. He clutches his head, fingers digging into his temples as he tries to drown out the deafening shouts.
Stop it!
He pleads into the darkness, but his words are swallowed by the relentless onslaught. The voices surge, filling every crevice of his mind with images of chaos and destruction. They urge him to act, to unleash the fury that they have stoked within him. In a moment of desperation, Mike lunges at the nearest wall, pounding his fists against the surface. The impact reverberates through him, a futile attempt to break free from the grip of his tormentors.
You think you can fight us? You are weak. You will succumb.
The shadows respond, swirling around him like a tempest, a black cloak of despair that threatens to consume his very essence. Mike's vision blurs as he sinks to the floor, overwhelmed by the weight of the voices that threaten to drown him. He feels the world slipping away, a spiral into a bottomless abyss.
No,
He gasps, desperation clawing at his throat.
I won't let you win.
With every ounce of willpower, he fights against the tide, pushing against the darkness that seeks to engulf him. Suddenly, he rises, fueled by a flicker of defiance.
I am not your puppet.
He screams, the words bursting forth like a dam breaking under pressure.
I am in control.
The voices falter, momentarily caught off guard by the surge of his determination. For the first time, Mike feels a flicker of power, a spark of light pushing back against the encroaching shadows. The laughter fades, replaced by a low, menacing growl that reverberates through the room.
You cannot escape what you are.
They unleash a torrent of horrifying images, visions of violence and destruction that claw at the edges of his consciousness. He sees himself standing over the bodies of those he loves, blood dripping from his hands, the screams echoing in his ears. The horror threatens to crush him, but he fights back with every fiber of his being.
No!
He roars, shaking his head violently, forcing the images away.
I choose who I am.
The shadows writhe in response, angry and chaotic, their forms shifting and twisting in protest. Yet, Mike stands firm, grounding himself in the reality of his own existence.
I will not be defined by you. You do not own me.
With a surge of adrenaline, he reaches deep within, searching for the core of his being. Memories flood his mind, laughter shared with friends, the warmth of family, moments of joy that remind him of who he truly is. Each recollection fortifies his resolve, pushing back against the malevolence that seeks to consume him. The voices scream in rage, but he stands tall, unwavering, a lighthouse amidst the storm. The whispers become frantic, a desperate plea for control that only fuels Mike's fire.
You are nothing without us.
They shriek, but he shakes his head defiantly.
I am everything without you.
With a roar that echoes through the confines of his mind, he thrusts his hands forward, imagining a barrier rising between himself and the darkness. Light pierces the shadows, illuminating the corners of his apartment, banishing the despair that once held him captive. The voices falter, their power waning as they are pushed back into the recesses of his mind.
You have no hold over me.
He shouts, the last vestiges of their influence fading into silence. As the darkness recedes, Mike collapses to the ground, breathing heavily, heart pounding in his chest. The room is still, the oppressive weight lifted as dawn's light filters through the window, casting a soft glow across the floor. He is left with a sense of profound relief, but also a poignant awareness of the battle he has just fought. As the light of the morning breaks, Mike understands that the path ahead will be fraught with challenges, but he also knows he possesses the strength to confront the darkness, to fight for his sanity, and to reclaim the life that is rightfully his. Mike sits on the floor, his body trembling as he processes the battle he has just faced. The voices, once a cacophony of chaos, have quieted, leaving behind an eerie stillness that feels both liberating and unsettling. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, he feels a semblance of control over his own mind. Mike rises slowly, taking tentative steps around his apartment. The shadows that once seemed menacing now appear as mere remnants of his struggle. He glances at the mirror, and for a fleeting moment, he recognizes the man looking back at him. He reaches out to friends and family, slowly mending the relationships that had frayed during his descent into darkness. The warmth of their concern envelops him, and he finds solace in their laughter and companionship. One evening, as Mike prepares dinner, he hears a faint murmur from the corner of the room. His heart races as he turns, bracing himself for the onslaught of whispers. But there is nothing, just the creak of the floorboards and the distant sounds of the city outside. He lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, dismissing the moment as a trick of his imagination. His therapist guides him through techniques to cope with the residual fear and anxiety. They discuss grounding exercises, mindfulness practices, and the importance of building a support network. Mike begins to reclaim his life. He understands that this will be a lifelong journey, one where he must face both the light and the shadows within himself. And though the whispers may return, he is ready to confront them, armed with the knowledge that he is not alone in this fight. The battle may have changed him, but it has also forged a new strength within him, a reminder that he can overcome the darkness that once threatened to consume him. One night, as he lies in bed, the silence is punctuated by a soft murmur, a faint echo that reverberates through the air. But the words are indistinct, slipping away like sand through his fingers. He squeezes his eyes shut, willing the sound to vanish, but with each breath, the whispers grow louder, more insistent. They slither through his mind, planting seeds of doubt that blossom into terrifying questions. What if he is not truly free? What if the darkness is merely dormant, waiting for an opportune moment to reclaim him? The shadows at the edge of his vision begin to coalesce into shapes, dark figures that loom and twist, teasing him with the possibility of their return. He can hear them now, their voices merging into a chilling symphony of madness.
You cannot escape us.
They hiss, their tones dripping with malice. The familiar sense of panic rises within him. The uncertainty looms, a dark cloud that hangs over him, whispering that the battle may have been won, but the war is far from over. Mike takes a deep breath, steeling himself against the mounting dread. He knows the whispers may return, but he also understands that he has the power to confront them. The darkness may linger, but he refuses to let it define him. As he lies in bed, he resolves to face whatever comes next, to fight against the shadows that threaten to engulf him. The lingering unease may remain, but he is ready to confront it, knowing that he is not alone in this struggle. The echoes of the past may call to him, but he stands resolute, prepared for the fight that lies ahead, aware that the true horror may yet unfold.